When Ethan Cole opened his eyes that morning, something felt off, eerily off. The usual hum of traffic outside his downtown apartment was absent. No honking horns. No muffled shouting from the street below. Not even the sound of the cafe owner next door arguing with his supplier, which had become something of a daily routine. The silence was unnatural. Thick. Heavy. Ethan pulled back the curtains and stared outside. His breath caught. The city, always alive, always loud, was still. Cars sat abandoned in the middle of intersections. A stroller was overturned on the sidewalk. Shop doors were left wide open, swinging slightly in the soft breeze. But there wasn't a single person in sight. He grabbed his phone. No notifications. No news updates. No service. Confused and slightly uneasy, Ethan threw on a hoodie, grabbed his flashlight, and headed out. The hallway of his building was deserted. Doors to other apartments stood ajar, some showing signs of people leaving in a hurry, keys and locks, suitcases by doorways, even a television still glowing static in one room. His footsteps echoed unnaturally loud on the tile floor. He called out. "Hello? Anyone?" No response. Just silence. On the street, he wandered aimlessly for blocks. The city had become a ghost town. A jacket lay crumpled in the middle of the road, stained with something dark and dried. Windows were smashed. A city bus had crashed into a lamppost, engine still ticking as though it had been running not long ago. Ethan's heart pounded harder with every step. This wasn't a power outage or a citywide emergency drill. Something had happened, something huge, and somehow, he had slept right through it. He headed to the police station. The building was locked, lights off. He tried the hospital next. The ER doors were wide open, swinging gently. Inside, it was chaos frozen in time, gurneys overturned, blood smeared across the white linoleum floor, and not a single soul to be found. He forced himself deeper inside, scanning for signs of life, but all he found were unanswered phones ringing in distant rooms and surgical tools scattered across the floor. Then came the first clue. In a nurse's station drawer, he found a hastily scribbled note. "They're not dead. They're hiding. It comes out at night. Don't stay outside. Don't trust the silence." His breath caught. What it? Just as he tried to piece the message together, a distant sound echoed down the hospital hallway, something dragging, slow and heavy. He froze. It was the first sound he'd heard since waking up. He turned off his flashlight. Held his breath. The dragging stopped. Then a whisper, barely audible. "Help, me." Ethan spun around, heart racing. The voice was coming from one of the patient rooms. He cautiously stepped inside. The room was dark, curtains drawn, and it smelled like rot. A man lay slumped against the wall, covered in blood. His breathing was shallow, and his eyes were wide with terror. "They took everyone," he rasped, barely able to speak. Came through the mist. One second they were there, next, they were gone. "Don't let them hear you." "Who?" Ethan asked, kneeling beside him. But the man's head lolled to the side, he was gone. Ethan backed away slowly, dread curling in his stomach. What had happened here? He returned to the street, and the sky was beginning to shift. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows. That same heavy silence returned, now even more menacing. A flicker of movement caught his eye, far down the block. He turned, squinting. A figure stood at the corner. Still. Watching. Then another stepped out behind it. And another. Their limbs twitched unnaturally, heads jerking as though confused. Their skin looked gray, sickly, as if whatever soul had once lived inside them had fled long ago. Ethan didn't wait. He ran. He didn't know what they were, or how they had come to be. All he knew was that he was alone in a city where silence ruled the day, and something terrifying owned the night. As he sprinted through alleys and over fences, he made a single vow to himself: survive the night. Find others. and uncover the truth of what happened to the city, before whatever walked its streets turned its gaze on him. Ethan didn't stop running until the shadows swallowed the last rays of sunlight. He ducked into the basement of an old laundromat, slamming the metal door shut behind him and piling anything he could find against it, shelves, crates, even a broken dryer. The silence returned. But it was no longer peaceful. Now, it was oppressive. Watching. Listening. He leaned against the wall, catching his breath. His hands shook, and his mind struggled to make sense of what he had just seen, figures moving like broken puppets, faces lifeless but somehow aware. The way they had turned toward him as if drawn to the faintest sound. The hospital warning rang in his ears again, "It comes out at night." From the corner of the room, something shifted. Ethan froze. But it was only a rat, darting between broken floor tiles. He exhaled shakily and checked his watch. No signal. No Wi-Fi. Just the ticking of seconds that now felt endless. He needed answers. And supplies. His water bottle was nearly empty, and all he had in his backpack was a flashlight, a pack of protein bars, and the blood-stained note from the hospital. He examined the paper again under the flashlight beam. There were faint markings on the back, like someone had started to write something else but scratched it out. He tried rubbing pencil over the paper to see if the indents revealed more. Slowly, faint letters emerged. They listen. They remember. They're not just walking. The message ended there, abruptly. A sudden scraping sound above made Ethan jump. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Right above him. He killed the flashlight and pressed himself against the basement wall. The footsteps grew louder, then stopped. For a moment, there was nothing. Then a soft, high-pitched clicking sound. Not like footsteps, more like bones snapping in rhythm, or teeth chattering. Ethan held his breath. Something moved across the floor above, pacing. Then it began tapping on the glass windows. As if testing. Searching. He waited in the dark, praying it wouldn't find the basement door. The sound eventually faded. But he couldn't stay there forever. At dawn, Ethan crept out. The streets looked the same, but he noticed something new. Strange symbols, spray-painted in red on some of the buildings. Circles with slashes through them. Handprints. Arrows pointing in seemingly random directions. They hadn't been there yesterday. Who painted them? Survivors? He decided to follow the arrows. They led him deeper into the heart of the city, past abandoned cafes, overturned police cruisers, and skyscrapers with shattered glass teeth. Every few blocks, more markings appeared, some fresh, some faded. He passed a burned-out bookstore, then a barricaded convenience store, its windows covered in boards with the words, "Safe Zone, No Entry After Dark." Inside, he found signs of life. Empty cans. A blanket. A cracked walkie-talkie. But no people. He grabbed what food and water he could find, stuffed them in his bag, and moved on. He felt watched the entire time. The next symbol led him to a parking garage. Half collapsed. One of the pillars had the same red symbol, this time with a note pinned beneath it. Sanctuary exists. Follow the path. Stay quiet. Stay in the light. The paper was stained with something dark, possibly blood, and ended with a rough sketch of a building. Tall. Circular. Looked like the old Civic Tower near the city center. Ethan looked up. The sky was dimming again. And the whispers had returned. Faint, ghost-like sounds on the edge of hearing. He couldn't make out words, just tones. Like someone speaking from underwater. Coming closer. He turned and saw them again. 5 this time. Walking in slow, jerky steps. But one of them stopped and sniffed the air. That one was different. Its head twitched sharply toward him. And then, it sprinted. Ethan ran. He barreled through alleyways and slid across broken pavement, his breath ragged. The thing was fast, too fast. It screamed, not like a human, but like metal scraping against glass. That scream triggered the others. More shapes appeared in the distance, sprinting, crashing through debris to follow him. He dove through a broken fence and into a narrow alley, then ducked into a maintenance hatch he had noticed earlier, slamming it shut behind him. The dark tunnel reeked of rot and mold, but it was quiet. For now. He waited until the sounds above faded. Only then did he allow himself to exhale. As he crawled deeper into the maintenance tunnel, he saw something ahead, flickering light. A candle. Voices. Real, human voices. He crawled faster. At the end of the tunnel, a steel door creaked open, revealing two figures holding flashlights and wearing makeshift armor, baseball pads, bike helmets, gloves wrapped in duct tape. They stared at Ethan in shock. Another one of them whispered. "We thought we were the last." Ethan stepped out of the maintenance tunnel, blinking against the flickering candlelight. The underground room he entered was low-ceilinged, damp, and lined with old supply shelves and dusty crates. The two people who had found him, one a tall, sharp-eyed woman with a crossbow slung across her back, the other a younger man with a jagged scar across his cheek, looked just as stunned as Ethan felt. "You're not infected," the woman said, lowering her weapon but not relaxing. "No," Ethan gasped, catching his breath. "I don't think so." She nodded slightly. "Then you're lucky. Or stupid." The man with the scar gave a hollow laugh. "Or both." They introduced themselves as Ray and Jordan, two of what they claimed were fewer than 20 survivors hiding in what they called the downside, a patchwork of old subway tunnels and forgotten city basements that had become their sanctuaries since the event everyone simply called the vanishing. People started disappearing during the night, one by one, Ray explained as she handed Ethan a bottle of water. No screams. No warning. Just gone. And then, those things started showing up. Jordan added, "At first, we thought it was a virus, like rabies. Then we saw one of them change. A man we knew, Frank, turned right in front of us. He didn't die. He just stopped being human." Ethan listened, trying to piece together the pattern. "What about the symbols?" "On the buildings." "That's us," Ray said. "Or, it was. A few of us tried to mark safe spots and leave messages for anyone left. Most of them didn't make it back." Jordan gestured toward a wall covered in maps, with red strings and notes connecting different city locations. "We think it's spreading from the old Civic Tower. The place in that sketch you found. No one who's gone near it has returned." Ethan stepped closer to the map. The Civic Tower sat at the center like a dark heart, red circles drawn around it in increasing radii. "You think that's where this started?" he asked. "No," Ray said grimly. "We know that's where it started." Ethan looked up. "Then why hasn't anyone tried to stop it?" Jordan scoffed. "You think we haven't? You think we haven't lost friends trying?" There was a long silence. Then Ray said, "There's something inside the tower. Something that calls to them. We think it's still alive. Or it used to be." That night, as the survivors huddled in the faint candlelight, Ethan walked through the narrow passages of the downside. Makeshift beds were spread across the floor. Some people, mostly teens and a few older folks, sat quietly, eyes distant. The weight of silence wasn't just outside anymore. It had followed everyone down here. Ethan found a quiet corner and sat down. His head spun with everything he'd learned. The idea that the entire city, millions of people, had been swallowed by whatever force was controlling these things was hard to accept. Sleep came in short, haunted bursts. He dreamed of empty streets, of buildings melting into shadow, of people crying out but with no mouths, no faces. He saw the Civic Tower, tall and skeletal, with a pulsing red light at its peak. A voice echoed through the dream. "Find the source. Or become part of the silence." He woke in a cold sweat. By morning, Ray was already awake, checking weapons and supplies. "I want to go to the tower," Ethan said. She didn't look up. "Bad idea." "I think I saw something," he said. In a dream. Now she looked at him, really looked. You dreamed about the tower? He nodded. Her expression hardened. You're not the first. Jordan walked in and groaned. No. No, no, no. Don't tell me he's one of them. Not one of them, Ray said. But maybe, sensitive. Sensitive? Ethan asked. Jordan explained, some of us get pulled into these nightmares. Visions. We think the tower sends them, maybe to draw us in, maybe to warn us. Nobody knows. But the ones who dream, Ray added. They're usually the ones who have the best chance of making it there. Ethan stood firm. Then I need to go. Jordan looked like he was going to argue, but then just threw his hands up. Fine. But if we're doing this, we need gear. A route. And a backup plan. Ray walked over to the map. There's a maintenance tunnel that leads near the tower. It'll take a day to get there, maybe 2. We go at first light. Quiet. Careful. And if anyone hears the whispering. She looked them both in the eye. We don't stop for anything. At sunrise, the city's hushed skyline looked almost beautiful, if not for the haunted truth behind it. Ethan, Ray, and Jordan stood at the edge of the downside, backpacks strapped tight, weapons secured. Above them, the maintenance hatch groaned open like the city itself was sighing in warning. The air was cold. Still. They moved quietly, taking a route through abandoned subway tunnels and collapsed parking structures. Every step brought them closer to the Civic Tower, and deeper into the unknown. Ethan noticed things. Subtle things. The silence wasn't empty. It breathed. It shifted. Sometimes, it watched. The deeper they went, the more unnatural it became. Trees growing where they shouldn't. Crows sitting in perfectly still rows on power lines. Storefronts covered in black moss, like a slow infection spreading across the city's skin. They reached a service tunnel by mid-afternoon. The red arrows Ray had painted months ago were still visible on the walls. Some had been clawed at. Scratched. As if something had tried to erase them. We stay underground tonight, Ray whispered, lighting a small fire in a caged metal bin. No open streets after dark. Not this close. Jordan unfolded a map, marking their progress. We'll reach the tower by tomorrow afternoon, if we move fast. Ethan studied the worn blueprint of the city. His eyes kept drifting toward the tower's symbol, a black spiral. It looked familiar. That night, the dreams returned. But this time, Ethan was awake. The flames flickered oddly, even though there was no wind. He glanced up, and saw Jordan, eyes wide open, staring at nothing. Jordan, he whispered. No response. Ethan reached out, and Jordan suddenly grabbed his wrist. I saw it, he said, his voice trembling. I saw what's inside. What? It's not a person. It's not even alive anymore. It's memory. Rotting memory. Trapped in a loop. Ethan froze. What does that mean? But Jordan suddenly slumped, unconscious, breathing heavily as if he'd run a marathon. Ray was already on her feet. Dream jump, she said grimly. Happens to some of us. The tower pulls part of your mind when you're too close. Sometimes it gives you a warning. Sometimes it gives you lies. Ethan sat in silence, staring into the fire. Then how do we know what to believe? Ray didn't answer. By morning, Jordan was awake, but pale. Quiet. He kept rubbing his temples like the thoughts were too loud. They moved fast. Through alleyways littered with abandoned cars. Past crushed buses. Around entire streets that had caved in, exposing twisted subway lines. And always, the tower loomed in the distance, taller now, clearer. A jagged monolith of blackened steel and broken windows. At the top, something pulsed faintly. A red glow. Like a heartbeat. That was when they heard it. Screams. Real, human screams. They froze. Then, Ray turned sharply. Someone's alive. Ethan started forward, but she held out an arm. It's a trap. Could be. We can't just leave them, he said. Jordan shook his head. We're this close. We can't blow the mission now. But Ethan was already moving. He sprinted through the alley toward the sound, heart racing. The cries came from an old hotel, its lobby windows shattered, front door hanging off the hinges. Inside, a girl, maybe 14, was trapped behind a broken vending machine, her leg pinned. Help, she cried. Please, they're coming back. Ethan rushed forward and began lifting the machine. It was heavy, and he strained with everything he had. Just as it shifted enough for her to pull free, a loud growl echoed down the hallway. Not human. Not even close. A blur of pale limbs burst into view. Ray and Jordan crashed in behind Ethan, weapons raised. Ray fired her crossbow. The bolt struck the creature in the neck, slowing it, but not stopping it. Jordan charged with a pipe, smashing it across the face. The creature shrieked and stumbled. The girl screamed. Together, the three of them dragged her out of the hotel and into the alley. More sounds were coming now. More growls. More footsteps. Ethan saw them, 4, 5, maybe more, crawling down buildings like insects, sprinting across rooftops. Drawn by the noise. By the fear. We have to move, now. Ray shouted. They ran. This time, the creatures followed. Leaping. Crawling. Whispering. They reached a construction site and slipped through a drainage tunnel, slamming the steel door behind them. The pounding on the other side didn't stop for a long time. When it did, the girl, still shaking, finally whispered, "They were people once. I heard them talking." Ray turned to her, stunned. "You heard them speak?" "Only once," she whispered. "They said the tower was remembering. That it wanted to start over." No one spoke after that. The Civic Tower was now just 6 blocks away. Its pulse had grown stronger. They reached the base of the Civic Tower just as dusk swallowed the sky in a bruised shade of purple. The air around the structure buzzed faintly, like the hum of dying electricity or a memory too loud to stay quiet. From this close, the building felt impossibly massive. Not just in height, but in presence. The glass was cracked and opaque with black film, the doors hanging half open like a mouth about to speak. And at the very top, the red light blinked slowly, steadily. Ethan stared up. It blinked in a rhythm that felt too intentional. 3 long pulses. 2 short. 1 pause. Repeat. "Is that Morse code?" he asked. Jordan shook his head. "We thought that at first too. But it's not in any pattern we know." "Not exactly." Ray's face was hard, focused. "It's more like a heartbeat." The girl they'd rescued, her name was Mia, stayed close to Ethan, her face pale but determined. "I've been dreaming about this place since the first night," she said. "Every time I get closer, I hear more." "Hear what?" Ray asked. Mia didn't look at her. "Names. Hundreds of them. Over and over." Jordan muttered under his breath, "Yeah, this place is definitely cursed." They stepped through the entrance. The lobby was worse than Ethan expected. The floor tiles had curled up in places like dead skin. The ceiling lights flickered dimly, though the power should have been long gone. A low, distant voice echoed through the building, not words, just a droning sound that sent shivers through his spine. The walls were covered in writing. Not paint, fingernail scratches. Over and over again. "We are still here. Don't listen to the light." They never left. The elevator shaft was a gaping hole of blackness, the cables torn and frayed like something massive had yanked them down. They'd have to climb. Ray found the emergency stairwell. "We go slow. No talking. Watch the shadows." They began their ascent. Each floor told a different part of the tower's madness. Office desks with bloodless bodies slumped over them, their faces blank like mannequins. Conference rooms filled with still-running projectors, flashing the same static image, a spiral, turning endlessly. By the 12th floor, Jordan started to lose it. He kept muttering to himself. Not words, just syllables. Fragments. Ray grabbed his shoulder. Jordan. Snap out of it. He looked at her, sweat pouring down his face. It's inside my head. I hear them. They're not gone, they're just waiting. Ethan glanced around. It was true. Something about the silence here wasn't passive. It was watching. Reacting. Waiting to be remembered. They passed a floor-labeled records archive. Mia stopped. I think this is where they keep the names, she whispered. No, Ray said. We go straight to the top. But Mia stepped inside. Just one look. Ethan hesitated, then followed her. Inside, rows of metal filing cabinets stretched into the darkness. Every drawer was open. Every folder scattered. In the middle of the room was a single chair, facing an old reel projector. The reel started spinning as soon as they entered. Images flickered to life, fast and disjointed. Crowds screaming. Faces turning. Buildings crumbling. Then, the tower. Standing tall in a void of white. A voice whispered. The city remembers. And so will you. Ethan backed away. But Mia stepped closer to the projector and spoke without blinking. That's my mother. What? Ethan asked. She disappeared during the vanishing. I didn't see it. I just woke up and she was gone. But that, she pointed at the screen. That's her. Then she screamed. The image on the screen shifted, her mother's face turning to rot. Hollow eyes. Mouth stretched in silence. Ray grabbed Mia, yanking her back. Enough. This place is trying to trap you. They fled the archive and returned to the stairwell. Jordan was slumped on the steps, holding his head. Floor 17, Ray said breathlessly. We're almost there. With every step now, the red light grew brighter. The droning louder. The walls began to pulse, not visually, but with pressure. Like the building itself was breathing in. Finally, they reached the 20th floor. The top. A steel door waited. It pulsed with the same red rhythm as the tower's peak. Ray raised her weapon. Whatever's behind this door, it's the source. Ethan put his hand on the door. It was warm. Behind them, the spiral pattern started glowing faintly on the walls. Whispering surrounded them now, unintelligible, desperate. Ethan looked at the others. They nodded. And together, they opened the door. The door opened with a whisper, not a creak, like it had been waiting for them. The room beyond was unlike anything they'd seen in the city. It was vast, circular, and impossibly tall. The ceiling stretched so far upward it vanished into darkness, and the walls pulsed faintly, alive with veins of red light moving like liquid. In the center stood a massive obelisk, black, polished, humming with energy. It resembled obsidian, but it felt older. Wrong. The red light at the top of the tower came from within it, flickering in sync with their heartbeats. Ethan stepped inside first. He wasn't breathing hard, but his chest hurt. Like pressure was building inside him, not around him. Ray followed, scanning everything, her weapon drawn. Jordan stopped at the threshold, hands trembling. It's louder here, he whispered. Like it's in my blood. Mia, however, walked toward the obelisk, like it was pulling her. She wasn't afraid. Wait, Mia, Ethan called. She turned. Her eyes were glowing faintly red. I remember now, she said. All of it. Ethan ran to her, grabbing her shoulders. What do you mean? It wasn't just a virus, or a weapon, Mia said softly. This city was part of something else. A memory experiment. The tower, it stores people. Jordan coughed. Stores? Like digital backups? Not digital, Ray said grimly. Psychic. Emotional. Something more primal. Mia nodded. It stores the feeling of people. Their voices, their grief, their fear. Everything. That's why the city never truly died. Ethan looked up at the obelisk. The surface was no longer smooth. It rippled, slowly forming shapes, faces, mouths, eyes. They whispered things no one wanted to understand. They uploaded the city's soul, Jordan said. And now it wants to put itself back together. The whispers grew louder, overlapping, pressing into their ears. Remain. Remember. Return. Then the obelisk pulsed, and Mia stepped forward. A beam of red light shot out from its center, hitting her square in the chest. She didn't scream. She smiled. Mia! Ethan shouted, trying to pull her back, but his hand passed through her. She was vanishing. Not disintegrating, phasing. Becoming part of the tower. It's okay, she said, voice echoing unnaturally. This is where I was always supposed to be. My memories belong to it. Then she was gone. The beam faded. The room fell silent. But now, the walls were changing. Images flickered across them, streets, faces, families. People who'd vanished. Ethan saw his own parents. Jordan saw his sister. Ray saw an entire unit of survivors she thought had died long ago. The tower was showing them everything it had kept. You said it stores feelings, Ethan muttered, staring in disbelief. But why? What does it want? Ray's voice was low. Maybe it doesn't want anything. Maybe it just is. No, Jordan said suddenly. There's a pattern. It started again after Mia touched it. A reset. Ethan looked up. The spiral pattern had reappeared at the top of the chamber, spinning faster. She completed a loop, Jordan whispered. And now it's starting again. Behind them, the door slammed shut. The tower was sealing them in. Then the voices returned, angrier this time. Less whispers, more commands. Join. Feed. Remain. The walls cracked. Figures began to emerge, pale, eyeless shapes, not fully human. The stored echoes of the city's past residents. But they didn't walk. They floated, warping the air around them, flickering like static. One turned its head toward Ethan. Its mouth open in a jagged, endless grin. He backed away. We're not memories, he shouted. We're alive. You can't take us. But the obelisk pulsed again, and this time, it aimed at him. He braced for the beam, but Ray tackled him to the side. The red light scorched the floor, burning a perfect spiral into the stone. We can't let it finish the loop, Ray said. We destroy the core, or it'll keep dragging more people in. Over and over. Jordan reached into his backpack, pulling out the last charge of explosive gel they'd salvaged from the old military lab. This is all we've got. One shot. Do it, Ray ordered. They ran toward the base of the obelisk, dodging the flickering ghost shapes closing in around them. Jordan slapped the gel to the side of the structure, setting the timer. 30 seconds, he said. Run! Ray shouted. They sprinted back to the stairwell door, but it didn't budge. The tower wouldn't let them go. Brace! Ethan yelled. They ducked behind the steel pillar just as the countdown hit 0. The explosion was blinding. The room filled with a red shockwave, screaming voices, and collapsing stone. Then, silence. Total, perfect silence. Smoke hung in the air like a curtain, thick and bitter. Ethan coughed, waving it away, blinking through the dust. The obelisk was gone. In its place was a black crater, slick, melted, and silent. The red glow had vanished completely. No spirals, no flickering light, no whispers. Just ruin. Ray groaned beside him, holding her side. Everyone okay? Jordan emerged from the rubble with a bloody lip and soot-covered face. Alive. Barely. Ethan scanned the room. Where's Mia? No one answered. He already knew. She had become part of the tower, and when it collapsed, so did whatever remained of her. The figures, those floating, flickering ghosts, were gone too. Nothing remained of them. Not even a trace. For the first time since the vanishing, the city was quiet. Truly silent. They forced the stairwell door open, climbing back down. The tower itself felt different. It no longer pulsed, no longer hummed beneath their feet. Every floor they passed was still, no more haunting images, no more voices in the shadows. Whatever lived in the tower, was gone. When they reached the street, the sky was beginning to brighten. Morning light peeked through the broken skyline. And that's when they saw it. People. Real people, dozens of them, walking in the distance. Disoriented, but alive. Ray ran forward, waving her arms. Hey! Over here! A man turned. His eyes widened. Where are we? What happened? One by one, they began emerging from alleyways, buildings, even underground shelters. Some were young. Some elderly. Many were confused, some terrified. All of them had been missing. The vanished, Ethan whispered. They're back. The man who'd spoken pointed toward the tower. I saw a light. Then a flash. Then I woke up here. I thought I was dreaming. Jordan exchanged looks with Ray. The tower wasn't just storing their minds. It had their bodies somewhere too. Ethan nodded slowly. Maybe destroying the core undid whatever kept them trapped. They spent hours helping the survivors, guiding them toward shelter, sharing food and water. Emergency supplies were still scattered across the city, untouched since the early days. By midday, the streets looked almost normal. People were crying, embracing, asking questions. The city was no longer empty. It breathed again. But Ethan couldn't shake the unease. Something still felt off. That evening, as the sun dipped below the shattered skyline, he sat on the roof of a building with Ray and Jordan, watching the horizon. It feels too easy, he said. Jordan nodded. Agreed. That tower was only one part of it. You think there are others? Ray asked. Ethan didn't answer right away. Then, Mia said the tower was part of a memory experiment. What if it wasn't the only one? They fell silent, the city stretching before them like a sleeping giant. Suddenly, Jordan's radio crackled. It had been silent for weeks. He fumbled to turn the volume up. If anyone can hear this, we need help. This is Shelter 42, East Sector. We've been trapped underground. People are acting strange. The lights, they're red now. Please, someone respond. The message looped. Ray stood slowly. It's not over. Jordan looked pale. If there's another tower. Ethan stood. Then we find it. Before it wakes up like the first one. Below, the city bustled with confused, newly returned survivors. None of them knew how close they'd come to never coming back. And beyond the city limits, deep in the wilderness, another red light blinked slowly into life, unseen by anyone. 3 long pulses. 2 short. 1 pause. Repeat. The road leading out of the city was cracked and overtaken by weeds, a forgotten stretch of asphalt pointing toward the unknown. Ethan drove in silence, his hands tight on the wheel. Jordan rode shotgun, hunched over a map they'd found in an old checkpoint bunker. Ray sat in the back, rifle across her knees, eyes constantly scanning the tree line. They had one destination, Shelter 42, the source of the radio transmission. The last known red signal. They didn't talk much. Not after what they'd seen. Not after Mia. It had been 3 days since the tower fell and the missing returned. 3 days of hope laced with quiet dread. The survivors remembered almost nothing, just flashes of red, static, and moments of pure fear. Like their minds had been wiped clean and refilled with something else. Something borrowed. And now that same hum, the one that haunted the tower, had returned, faint but rising, coming from the hills beyond the city. Just like before. The road ended in dirt. Trees rose around them, thick and tall. They continued on foot, backpacks loaded, weapons ready. They reached the outskirts of an abandoned military base by late afternoon. It wasn't on any official map. But it was real. Barbed wire fences. Watchtowers. A massive concrete bunker half swallowed by moss and time. The air here felt heavy, electric. The hair on the back of Ethan's neck stood on end. "This place gives me déjà vu," Jordan muttered. "Don't trust déjà vu anymore," Ray said. "Too many memories that weren't ours." The bunker doors were sealed shut, but not locked. Ray used a crowbar to pry them open. Inside, the silence wasn't peaceful. It was loaded, like the place was listening. They moved slowly down the corridor, flashlights sweeping across walls littered with symbols. Spirals. Red handprints. Words scrawled in a dozen languages. Remain. Return. Repeat. "I've seen this before," Ethan whispered. In the tower. They reached a chamber deep underground. It looked almost identical to the first tower's core, only older. More decayed. Vines had crept through cracks in the walls, wrapping around a second obelisk, smaller but humming with that same low, red pulse. This one was active. And something was inside it. The surface of the obelisk shimmered, and then a face appeared. Mia. Her image flickered, distorted, but unmistakable. "Ethan," she said. "You made it." He stumbled back, breath catching. "Mia. How?" "I didn't disappear," she said. "I was transferred. Part of me remained. Not just in the city. Here too." Jordan's voice cracked. "They copied her." "More than just me," Mia said. Her face faded, replaced by dozens of others. Hundreds. Children. Soldiers. Scientists. Survivors. All flickering in and out of the obelisk like radio frequencies skipping across stations. "They built more than one tower," Mia continued. "Testing how much humanity could forget. How much could be stored." "Why?" Ray demanded. "To prepare," Mia said, her voice distant now. "For the collapse. For when memory itself would be too dangerous to leave uncontrolled." Ethan clenched his fists. "This isn't preservation. This is erasure." The lights flickered. The ground trembled. The obelisk began to open. A door formed in its side, wide enough for someone to step through. Jordan raised his weapon. "We have to destroy it. Right now." "No," Mia's voice echoed. "If you destroy this one, the network reacts. It spreads. There are more of them. Scattered. Connected. Hidden." Ethan took a breath. "Then we don't destroy it." Ray stared at him. "Excuse me?" "We reprogram it." They turned to Jordan, who blinked at him. "Reprogram it with what?" Ethan stepped toward the obelisk. "With real memories. Ours. The truth. Everything that happened. The pain. The choices." "Mia." Ray shook her head. "That could kill you." "Maybe," Ethan said. "But if it works, it could break the system." He reached out and placed his hand on the surface. A shock ran through him, cold and searing. Images flashed in his mind. Childhood. The outbreak. His parents. Mia's smile. Blood. Fire. Silence. Then, slowly, the red glow began to shift. To white. The obelisk groaned. The symbols on the walls faded. The spirals unwound. And somewhere, far beyond, a network of signals blinked out, one by one. Ethan collapsed. Jordan and Ray rushed to him. He was breathing. The bunker was silent again, but in a different way. A peaceful way. The tower was gone. No more memory traps. No more stolen identities. Just the people, finally free. 1 week later. The city was still rebuilding. Survivors were reconnecting. Families reunited. And in the town square, where the first tower once stood, a new monument had been placed. To the lost, and to those who remember. Ethan stood beside it, hand in pocket, Ray and Jordan at his side. "Think it's over?" Jordan asked. Ethan looked at the sky. "No. But this time, we remember everything." The end.